Manhattan Convention and Visitors Bureau is a division of the Chamber of Commerce. There are 3 divisions here in the Chamber. There is membership, which is self-explanatory in the fact that you become a Chamber member so you can represent your business. Economic development. Economic development obviously is that of how we make a community stronger as we work with businesses, and how do we help businesses to have a huge economic impact. And then the 3rd division is the Convention and Visitors Bureau. In Convention and Visitors Bureau, we hold a contract with the City of Manhattan in which to conduct promotion of tourism for the community on its behalf. We do quarterly reports to the City Commission so that they know what we are doing, our efforts as to how we do that with our marketing, give them an update as far as how many conferences that we are working with, how many special events that we are working with, that kind of thing. Last year, I think you'll find it interesting that we hosted 198 conferences that we touched. And I could grab what that dollar amount was, what that generated. But 198 conferences. Now, we don't want you to think, well, Manhattan just held 198 conferences. There are a lot of conferences and meetings that come into our community that don't use the Convention and Visitors Bureau to locate their hotel rooms, to locate their meeting space, to help set up their special event or offsite venues. And that's why you would come to a bureau, is we are knowledgeable of all of those entities that make up the community, and how do you help them find that right fit that fits well with their conference. So transient guest tax is what funds the Convention and Visitors Bureau. That varies from year to year. Last year, we received about $1.2 million of the transient guest tax collections. So those transient guest tax collections continue to go up as Manhattan continues to be a desirable destination.
Tell me a little bit about the staff members that you have.
Our staff members, the Convention and Visitors Bureau is made up, I serve as the director of the Convention and Visitors Bureau. We have a convention sales manager. That convention sales manager, their market that they totally concentrate on is that of association, of corporate business, and government business. We generate quite a bit of business through that. Associations love to meet in Manhattan. There's a variety of reasons for that. One, even though geographically we are in eastern Kansas, many times those associations that have memberships across the state of Kansas view Manhattan as a western Kansas destination. Also, with us being home to the first land-grant university in America, the Ag College here really draws a lot of people to us. So that association market is pretty well, Manhattan is very well known in that association world. What we see really growing and changing, certainly with NBAF coming on, the National Agrobio Research Facility, that will come on live in 2023-24. We see that there has been an increase with government business. Certainly the Department of Ag now calls Manhattan home as well, and that has brought meetings to meet here in Manhattan. So government business has increased. The other thing that we see that is changing in our market is that of corporations. And again, because of the university driving so much of that and how the business makeup of Manhattan is changing, we're beginning to see corporate businesses choosing to call Manhattan their meeting destination as well. So our convention sales manager is rather busy. The other team player that we have is our sports/leisure sales person. When we talk about sports, that's not Division I athletics. Division I, Kansas State does a great job with selling that themselves. We are really concentrated on those sports entities that are youth sports, soccer, basketball, baseball, those kinds of things. Disc golf. Last year, you'll find this interesting that we hosted a geocaching event, which is a sport, and that geocaching event, when they were here over the weekend, caused our hotels to be almost 98% capacity, almost unheard of. We had people that represented every state coming to find that geocache. Can we repeat that? Probably not, because once you find a cache, you're good. But there can be other groups like that. So sports is that salesperson's mission to pursue, as well as then the Smurf market. We joke and say in our world, that's not little blue people, that's really sports, military, education, religious and fraternal groups. So those groups that are a little bit smaller in nature certainly have an impact. More of a volunteer meeting planner, organizer of that. They like to meet here in Manhattan. Again, we have good, affordable meeting space for them in which to meet. We also have a service coordinator. Our service coordinator is a person that is responsible for, once those meetings are sold, is going back and working with those meeting planners to make sure that they know that we can provide them with name tags. We make those name badges for them. Providing them our cell phone charging station. We have 2 of those, that those cell phone charging stations have a video about Manhattan on them, but also they can be personalized so that that conference, if they're meeting and they want their logo, or they have an itinerary or a video of their organization, that can also be put on that cell phone charging station. Our service coordinator also will make sure that if they want to have a mayor welcome or a presentation of colors to begin that conference, those will be arranged by our service coordinator. All of those efforts are to secure and make sure that while they are choosing Manhattan, that they are having the best experience that they possibly can have. I just worked with a conference today that will be meeting here in Manhattan this weekend, and they were very, very appreciative of the efforts that our service coordinator has made in making sure that their conference will be an excellent conference. So those relationships, that making sure that we touch them to make sure that their conference is good, is excellent. We have just recently added a social media person. Our communications team is very important. Social media is really where things are at, where we gather our news, where we learn what is happening, what's not. In the Convention and Visitors Bureau world, what we find is we have to have our hands in a little bit of everything. We have to have our hands in print. We have to have our hands in billboards. We have to have our hands in magazines. But truly what we are seeing just by leaps and bounds is our change in social media, how people gather that information. So this last August, we added a social media specialist that's all that person does, is focuses on our messaging on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Pinterest, are the 3 venues that we are focusing on. We also have a person that is dedicated to our website, and our website is in the process of being updated and matching what that is of our print, our visitor's guide, so that our messaging, and if you go to visitmanhattanks.org, you will see that we're in process. We just have introduced our new visitor's guide that is on print. Is in print. We distribute about 100,000 of those a year, but it's also online, so you can see that virtually. But many times as people are requesting to come to Manhattan, they still are seeking that printed piece. So again, it's very important for us. Our social media person then also will take that messaging that's in our visitor's guide and push that out in smaller bits of information, because as you know, we absorb a lot of information. We just don't do it in big chunks anymore. We also have our Director of Communications. And again, when I talk about our communications division, the social media person currently focuses just on the Convention and Visitors Bureau. Because we function as a division of the Chamber of Commerce, we have to share our person that's responsible for our website and the Director of Communications that really does the graphic work and much of the design. That position is shared. Ideally, it would be great if they could focus totally on the Convention and Visitors Bureau, but because we are somewhat small, again, I told you our budget last year was about $1.2 million, a lot of dollars, but there's a lot of expense that goes out of that with staffing and then programs that we have going on, that it's just it's just not enough for us to not share those positions.
What's the biggest challenge for Manhattan right now?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. The biggest challenge for Manhattan, as I see, first of all, before I answer that, I have to reflect back to where we were, and where we are, and where we are going. Manhattan is one of the top 3 fastest growing communities in the state of Kansas. Obviously, the Kansas City market is the one that continues to grow and grow quickly. Manhattan, since 2000, we began our redevelopment project downtown in 2005. The conference center and our hotel and our Flint Hills Discovery Center, all of that came online in November of 2011. So we're 6-7 years old now with those entities. But with doing that redevelopment, what we did, as the community, what we have created, we've created a very walkable destination, really in 2 areas. Our downtown is vibrant compared to those that have been here in Manhattan for any time at all. It wasn't that long ago that we didn't have much dining downtown. We certainly didn't have attractions other than Kansas State University. How do we extend that stay? How do we tell people what this region and what all there is to do in the area? So by the redevelopment project, with the conference center coming online, with the hotels being built downtown, the proximity of that has made helped our downtown to be very vibrant, active, and alive. You can come down any day of the week in the evening time and see activity. It's great to see people that pour out of the conference center at the end of the day to come downtown to be able to stretch their legs, grab a bite to eat, enjoy a beverage, and have a good time to unwind. With that being said, Aggieville also has been a long time a well-known marquee for Manhattan, Kansas. Certainly the proximity to it, to the university. It's it's the oldest shopping district of its kind in Kansas. The reason for that, it was built for students' needs, certainly reflects that when you think of the shopping, the dining, the celebration areas that Aggieville has. The challenge that I think Manhattan is facing right now is really Aggieville and the redevelopment project. Now it's Aggieville's turn. We have 2 great hotels that are in that area. There is discussion of should there be another hotel in the Aggieville district area. That is up for discussion now. The commission is looking at that as possibly a possibility. With or without that happening, what we also have is from a meeting standpoint, we have 2 hotels that are very close to Aggieville, very close to the university, can use the university's meeting space, the Alumni Center, the Union, as offsite meeting venues. Certainly the educational opportunity from Kansas State University, that in itself is a wealth and is a meeting planner's dream come true, to be able to utilize the research and professors' knowledge from that to pull them in as speakers is phenomenal. So you have that area that is also a very walkable destination. So our challenge, how do we continue to make Manhattan move forward? How do we continue to make Manhattan that vibrant community? When we started the redevelopment project, we did some research back in 2005, and we looked at specifically the question of, should Manhattan have a conference center? At that point in time in 2005, when you looked at the entirety of the state, Manhattan was at the bottom of that. We were really in the last third of that. As you look at what Manhattan has done, what the meeting offerings, our lodging offerings, our community offerings are today, we're in the top third. So I don't want Manhattan to grow content. I don't want us to say, okay, our work is done. It doesn't take you long at all to look around and see what our neighboring communities have done to improve their lodging, their meeting efforts. Salina has built a conference center. Topeka is building a new hotels and some meeting venues right downtown. They're in the process of revitalizing their downtown. Certainly that's a desirable destination. So people have noticed we have taken business away from those two communities specifically. So we don't want to grow content. We still want to be that vibrant community with new offerings, with new attractions for them to come and enjoy. So that would be what I'm concerned with, is that we say, oh, we've done all we can do, and let's just sit back and let it happen. We can't afford to do that. I can tell you that from a meeting standpoint, again, I told you that we were in the top third today. From a meeting standpoint, Wichita has noticed that we have taken a bite from them. Kansas City has noticed that we've taken a bite from them. Will we ever be those cities? No, those are cities, and there are some pieces of business that we will never be able to accommodate. But for us to be able to attract it and to make a difference in what their meeting offerings are, I think Manhattan needs to be very proud of that fact, that we have been able to do that well.
Let's go back for the last question.
Yeah.
Tell me how you got into this business, what your educational background is, and what you think students today should study.
Great question.
To think about this.
Yes. I have a degree in business administration. When I got my degree, travel and tourism was not a degree that could be had. But the ability to tell the story, to communicate, has been age old. How do you tell that story? How do you help make sure that what we are selling or presenting is key? How did I get into this business? Well, I have a love for people. I had an opportunity more in a volunteer position prior to joining the Convention and Visitors Bureau, that I helped organize a lot of meetings, and did that outside of Manhattan, Kansas. I'm talking in Washington, D.C., and Chicago and Virginia. Much of that was in a volunteer position because of what my spouse's work was. And so did that more from a volunteer aspect rather than getting paid for it. But again, I have a love for people and a love for being able to connect them with what their needs and wants are. I think for me, and what I look for when we hire staff, is having people work for me that are relational, that are good listeners, that know how to listen, and in that listening also know how to ask questions. If you are in journalism, certainly that's a skill that you have almost inbred in you. I think that that's something that you're inquisitive, you want to know why. And so I think that that's very important in this job, is how do you help people? You ask them those questions. Why, what size is your meeting? What is the purpose of your meeting? What are you wanting to accomplish? And then when you take those questions and dig even a little bit deeper, it becomes a very natural way for you to put things together. Manhattan welcomed through our doors, if you wish. If you had a door that you entered into when you drove through city limits, last year Manhattan welcomed over 354,000 visitors to our community. That's pretty significant. When they come, the average visitor spends $311 a day. That's average. So depending on if you're here for sports, that can be a little bit more. If you're here for a conference, that can be a little bit more. If you're a leisure visitor, depending on what you do during that leisure activity, that all plays into that. So on average, it's $311 a day. When you think about how that $311 is spent, it's pretty significant. Obviously, the largest spend that we know from Oxford Economics, that research that has been done for us, the largest spend of that visitor's dollar is spent on shopping and dining. So when you think about that, that bears out with what our research has been done. When people come to Manhattan, Kansas, they come because they want to shop and they want to dine. And we certainly have good offerings. Specifically, Manhattan has over 60 unique dining venues in Manhattan, Kansas. So pretty significant. It takes you almost 2 months to eat in someplace different every day. Think about that. Yeah, pretty amazing. The second spend that we have from shopping and dining then is that of lodging. That's logical. You've got to have a place to stay, whether you're staying at a unique venue, in a traditional hotel, Airbnb, bed and breakfast, you choose which way your lodging choice would be. Then after that, it's transportation. And we are definitely a drive-to destination. So those dollars that are figured are that for gas or what it takes for you to get here. Then it's recreation, and that recreation spend can be in a variety of ways. I encourage you to think about what you do. It might be buying tickets to go to a performance at McCain. It might be going to a movie at the IMAX theater. It might be going to see a boxing match that's sponsored by Fort Riley. There's all sorts of different entertainment, if you wish, as well as certainly Big 12 sports. That's also figured into that attraction figure. Mm-hmm. The other number that we are seeing that those dollars are spent for the very first time, we're beginning to see that about 1.2% of visitors' dollars are spent on second homes. We get real excited about that because this region that we are in, the Flint Hills, people love it. The openness, there's something to be said about the Flint Hills of Kansas, the wide open spaces is when it's spring and summer, and the ability to get outside and really enjoy that. There's something, I call it soul soothing, but it also slows us down a little bit from the fast pace that we are in. So it's not surprising to me to see that we have 1.2% of people's dollars are being spent for second homes. That can be because they desire to return to the Flint Hills rather than retire in the Flint Hills. It's to return to the Flint Hills. I think some of that is because of the calling of Kansas State University. People generally have had a good experience when they go to college, want to come back and reminisce about those college years, those very formative years that helped launch them for their successful path in life. So when you think about how those tourism dollars are spent, when you think about when you come into our community and lay down your cash, how does that affect people? We'll just talk about that for a moment. Let's start with our lodging first. That lodging takes care of people that work in the hotels, it takes care of that banquet staff, it takes care of that breakfast staff, it takes care of housekeeping, it takes care of front desk. When you think about when you go out to eat, all of those people that provide you with that great dining experience, it's the waitress, it's the general manager, it's the cook, it's the chef, it's the busboy. It's all of those people that help make that dining establishment a great establishment. If you go to see the latest movie that is in, think about that. Think about the person that's selling your ticket. Again, the general manager that's making sure that the theater is clean and ready for you to enjoy. It's that crew that is preparing your meal for you. If you go to the IMAX theater, we really now are a dining destination as well as a movie theater destination. So it's the kid that's running the bar. It's the kid that's running the popcorn. All of those in our IMAX theater. There's a lot of people there that provide you with a great tourism experience. When you think of that shopping experience, and you might think of that shopkeeper, that clerk, that person that is purchasing that inventory, really contemplating what's going to sell or not in this community. You might think about artwork when you go to the art gallery, and those artists that have been inspired. Certainly the Nelson Strecker West Art Gallery really focuses many times on Flint Hills artists. But when you think about those artists that have their artwork for sale, they've been inspired here in the Flint Hills to be able to produce a medium that you are going to enjoy. So that's a good venue that you keep those doors open when you spend dollars here in Manhattan, Kansas. So the list also goes on when you think about dry clean. Dry cleaning also, when you have a banquet or you come in for a wedding or a venue, you're going to have clean linens. You're going to have that experience. Whatever that venue is wanting to put on its best experience for you. So even dry cleaners know that when there's a big event in our community, that affects them as well. Gas stations, certainly, you stop and you get your fuel. Something that also has really grown and will continue to grow, we've improved our offerings with that greatly, is the Manhattan Regional Airport. As we have that service to fly into Manhattan, there are 5 daily flights, 2 to Chicago, 3 to Dallas-Fort Worth. You can literally get anywhere across the world from with your originating point here in Manhattan, Kansas. But when you think about the people that the airport itself employs, as we offer those flights, it's phenomenal. Again, those are dollars that are generated due to tourism. If we weren't a destination, driving home again, this 354,000 people that came to Manhattan over the course of the 2017 year, they came in a variety of ways, that they spent money that allows you and I that call Manhattan home to enjoy a great community that we live in every day, but they come in to enjoy for 2 days a week, whatever their length of time is that they're choosing to enjoy it.